Ladies and gentlemen, it is Wednesday night, and you know what that means. It is lightning round time. Kevin Tompkins here, Gary Haddow, Andrew Cooper. We are hanging out here on a Wednesday night. We're going to talk about some week 4 football action, fellas. How are we doing?
Doing good. Doing good. Just excited to be here. It's been a really long week, and it's only Wednesday. So I'm very, very happy to be here and turn my brain off from work and be here.
Yeah, dude, I've had a ridiculous week. I mean, just today I made like 100 mistakes. I had an electrician coming today, and I took so I had to run to the store, came back, put a bunch of stuff in like an ice chest with ice, right, and then left the door locked, right, so he couldn't get in. I go to work, I come all the way back, let him in. He goes, "You didn't have to put stuff in the ice chest. If the fridge is closed, then it's fine." And I'm like, "Okay, that's you shouldn't have told me that now of all the times." But then I'm like, "I'll just work from home because I'm not going to drive back to work." And then I remember that he has to shut the electricity off. That was the whole reason for the ice chest thing. So now I'm sitting in the dark trying to tether my phone to my laptop. That's the kind of day I've been having, guys. So, but we're here.
That is young, so many more mistakes can be made in the next hour.
Many more mistakes, and I'm ready to make them.
That's right. We're Mistake City. Let's evade a couple of them. We'll make some, but let's not be Marquise Brown here on a deep shot. Let's not do that. So yeah, what we're going to talk about week 4 strategy session here. Players that we are higher and lower on over these 3 weeks of the NFL season. Let's get right into it. So Gary, Let's start on a positive note here. So one player that you are higher on after 3 weeks of the NFL season.
I'm going to go with my boy. Spot started him this past week, and I think I'm going to ride him out for a while at quarterback, and that is Kirk, don't give me no vaccine, put my steak in aluminum foil, Cousins. I mean, the dude's been on fire, and we knew that Kirk always has this solid, it felt like a solid floor, but that's kind of misleading because you would have these boom games and then these bust games, and we never really knew what to make of a full season of him. But that offense, I mean, we talked about it last week. I believe your kind of thing you were very excited about or whatever, interested in from week 2 when we talked last week was about the philosophy change, that their offense was running 3 wide sets. They were passing the ball a ton. We saw KJ Osborne start to become more involved, even if this last week wasn't that great for that. But then Tyler Conklin stepped up. So we were seeing 3 pass catchers really step it up. And here we are, man. I think Kirk, if I remember correctly, is going now. I think he is the quarterback 6 on the year. That may have changed for some reason. I'm blanking on it. I fully apologize. I should have had this already. But that's crazy. I mean, it's Kirk Cousins. You don't really expect it to be that. He dropped after this most recent one. But I don't know. It's a breath of fresh air that Kirk Cousins. He's quarterback 5, at least in my one league. So that's just wild. You don't really think that that's going to be the case. I mean, he's above Russell Wilson, even by just a couple points. But that's amazing. And I don't see that they're going to be slowing down. We saw that Dalvin Cook, he gets banged up. The Dalvin Cook experience is always one of once a game you gasp, terrified of what's going to happen, and it just seems like he's going to keep going strong. So I'm very, very excited to have Kirk Cousins on any roster I can have.
I mean, Kirk Cousins was one of the more efficient passers in terms of yards per game, yards per attempt, things like that. Coming into the season, it was just the pass volume was so low. So there were people out there that were basically saying, you let the guy throw, but no one really thought they were going to let him throw. And look at us now, So, I mean, throwing to whoever too, like you said, KJ Osborne, Tyler Conklin, every pass is a completion. So, I mean, the guy might be kind of weird, but clearly he's shown that he can spread the ball around to not just superstars, but to everybody. Yeah. And that's one of the key components of when you look at the Tom Brady's and the Peyton Mannings and stuff, that's one of the key components for those type guys, like Aaron Rodgers. I know he throws to Devontae Adams heavily, but he can kind of throw it to anybody else. It doesn't really matter. And Cousins is kind of showing that this year. And, that's what separates the guys like him versus the guys like Eli Manning or whoever that get locked into one guy, So I like Cousins a lot based on what I'm seeing.
Totally.
Yeah, Cousins looks pretty good right now, and certainly a lot to do with that too is Clint Kubiak installing a little more up tempo into that offense. We know Minnesota wants to run the ball. When they get into positive game script, that's what they're going to do. They're going to be running the ball, and then Kirk Cousins run about 20% play action out of that. So when you're talking about Kirk Cousins, you're never going to get any rushing upside. I mean, that's never going to happen. It's not his thing. But if you like Drew Brees, late career Drew Brees, you're pretty much getting that with Kirk Cousins right now. Highly efficient, highly accurate, can still sling the ball down. He doesn't have, Michael Thomas, but I mean, too many touchdowns. Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson is not a bad consolation prize to have for having those two guys. And then, complementary pieces in Osborne, Tyler Conklin and guys like that. So, go ahead.
I was gonna say with Clint Kubiak, man, this isn't your dad's Vikings offense, is it now? Right?
It's really not. Yeah, I mean, and I promise you, Alexander Madison is not a trap. So that's all. That's pretty much all I got to say about that. Kirk Cousins can certainly be a top 12 quarterback. I mean, the only thing that I worry about, he does have, I believe it's the third lowest ADOT of quarterbacks with at least 50 pass attempts. But with those options, not certainly worried about that. Justin Jefferson can create on his own after the catch. Adam Thielen can certainly create as well. One of them are, as Koopa say, the professional wide receivers. That is the word du jour of the day of the week, whatever. Kirk Cousins, he's top 12. Lock it in.
Definitely.
You're muted, buddy.
He's a professional, unlike they were saying about Brandon Ayuk earlier this year, that he wasn't maybe not ready to play. That's a professional pass catcher. So yeah, that is the saying of the week this week. We'll see what it is next week.
I dig it. Coop, one player you're higher on after 3 weeks.
Yeah, I have to admit this. I mean, like I really truly thought, with Brad Hunt coming in, he was the head scout of the Rams, and he watched them run Todd Gurley into the ground in a 4-win season. And then by the time the team was competing, Todd Gurley was banged up, as Kevin would say, he was dust. And it's like you would think that Brad Hunt, he goes and he lets, they're tanking, they're kind of trying to lose, but he brings in one guy, and that's Jamal Williams, right? So you would think that maybe his plan would be, we'll take the load off Deandre Swift. So that was kind of my thinking coming in. This is a bad team. It's a split backfield. Swift, he doesn't really have the upside, but they're letting Anthony Lynn do his thing. Just he wants to throw it to the running back a million times. He did it in San Diego, and he did it in Los Angeles, and now he's doing it in Detroit, and you can't really deny that. I mean, 7 targets a game for a running back is all you ever care about. You know what I mean? Yep. Like James White, he obviously he's out now, but he got 6 targets the first 2 games. He was kind of on the trajectory to be a PPR RB1. It's like if Deandre Swift, it doesn't matter how bad the team is, if they're going to throw him 7 or 8 targets, then he could be an RB1. So I was lower on Deandre Swift, and at this point, like we like to say, where we don't get take locked if we can avoid it. This is science that we're doing here. So as new information comes to light, the science changes. We have to take the hypothesis of yesteryear and kind of throw them out the window. So for me, DeAndre Swift now is in my RB1 range based on sheer volume alone. Is he going to have bad games? Yes. TJ Hawkinson had a bad game last week. There are going to be games where the Lions get trounced. It's going to happen. But in these games where they are getting trounced so far, he's getting receptions. So, I mean, for now, it's hard you can't deny it,
It feels like exactly what we were saying in the offseason. It's going to be Swift and it's going to be Hawk. And then everybody started to get really nervous about the premise of this because it was Jared Goff and just his team was going to be a dumpster fire. But they're manufacturing points. Like, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I will say they beat the Ravens, regardless of what the score says. They actually beat them. And so they put up fights in their games, even if they're never – I mean, hell, they might not ever really win a game outright, but they're putting up points, so that's the best we can say right now, and it's worth it when you have pass catching back.
Yeah, any time you're getting a running back that is running 27% targets per route run, that's running 60% of the routes, 2 top 5 finishes and as far as RBs in the week. DeAndre Swift is clearly an RB1 right now, and Dan Campbell did say he has earned the right to be the starting running back. I mean, what more's a guy got to do, for the love of God? But DeAndre Swift, Jamal Williams is still going to be involved. I don't think that's ever going to go away, but just talent trumps, talent wins out. DeAndre Swift, awesome RB1, lock it in.
We have a Jared Goff stand in the chat. That makes me and Auntie Coop and Linda, and that's it.
I dig it.
Unless you guys are Jared Goff fans up there in the top.
No.
Team Pete, the Peach Boys are indifferent.
The Peach Boys.
He's on the Lions now, so I would say I'm much less like every time he does anything and opens his mouth and moves the ball. I'm just like, now I'm like, oh, okay, whatever.
No, it's fine. Yeah,
you're just like a happy little kindergartner.
It's like all the Tom Brady haters once he left the Patriots. Everyone was like, this guy's he's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, as a Packers fan, I'm like contractually obligated to be indifferent about the Lions because they've been the redhead stepchild for most of my adult life. But
It's so funny, dude, that like I don't hate the Bills yet. I know I will soon. But they've just been, for as long as I can remember, they've been bad. And we've destroyed them. I mean, like destroyed them. And the 2 times they did beat us in the last like 20 years, we won the Super Bowl both those seasons. So it was like, who cares? But I'm sure they'll find their way into the black reaches of my heart as soon as they actually start like winning. If they win a Super Bowl, I think that would do it for me. But as of now, I'm like, you know what? Their fans are funny and their stadium's trash and their city is like dying unless they go and dredge that river up there. So I have no problem just kind of letting the Bills fans enjoy, their mild success they've had so far.
I love it. So one player that I am higher on, and this is just an absolute shock to me. And, if people want to tweet me and go, I told you so. This was actually something that from 2 years ago where I just thought that he was completely overrated. And I made, a lot of bones about it on social media. It's Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry, we knew he was just an awesome running back between the tackles and, we've seen all the highlights and everything like that. But the one thing that's been missing from Derrick Henry's game is his ability in the passing game. And now apparently Derrick Henry, he leveled up. He's got 13 targets in 3 games, I believe. His career high, I want to say, is 19. So yeah, or I'm sorry, actually I believe it's 30. I think 19 is his catches, but still Derrick Henry's on pace to absolutely shatter his career highs in targets and receiving. And that was the one missing component to his game. He's already averaged, I believe, 25.9 fantasy points per game so far in these 3 weeks. It's just absolutely phenomenal, to see this out of Derrick Henry. If we were going to redraft, 2021, I can't put anybody right now over Derrick Henry. Even Alvin Kamara, Dalvin Cook can't do it. I think Derrick Henry's got to be the 101 right now if you're redrafting after 3 weeks.
Man, so many people just their pitchforks in hand. They're like, God damn it, now we can't come after you.
I'm not saying anything about Nick Chubb. That's it. I'm holding strong on that.
But I agree. I mean, God, he looks amazing. The targets are they're crazy. And I feel like there's not going away, like especially with Brown and Julio not doing much so far. So if you have them, man, it's fun. Yeah, definitely fun to have.
Yeah, crazy. I mean, like that was the whole hang up, right? And it's now if it's truly gone, I mean, the first week Jeremy Mcnichols played a ton of pass snaps. So I was like, business as usual, but I mean, it was the second week really where when he had the 6 catches that I was like, okay, maybe it's happening. So if you made the plunge in a full PPR, especially that's where you really got value. I was seeing him go towards the end of the first at times. And in one league, I think he went the early second. So it's like you're steamrolling if that was the case. So, kudos.
Yeah, Mcnichols is still getting pretty much the monopoly on the long down and distance snaps, but they're using him creatively in the script. Derrick Henry is the only thing right now that is working in this Tennessee offense. I mean, this passing game, I do a Data Blast article every Thursday for Ball Blast. I compare the Tennessee Titans passing offense to a broken McDonald's shake machine, where Derrick Henry's the Big Mac, the tried and true, will never let you down, and Chester Rogers is the chicken fajita nobody orders. So, Derrick Henry's working right now. Ride the wave.
And I will say that to anyone listening or watching live here, like these podcasts, man, these suck for us, dude. Because it's like we're telling you guys we're going to tell you guys that we were low on that are doing well, and then we're going to tell you guys we were high on that are doing poorly. But this is where you get the most honest opinions out there, right? Because it's like everyone wants to victory lap their guys, and you're victory lapping guys that you maybe shouldn't, right? Because it's like, like week 1, I was victory lapping Juwan Johnson. Then the next day I was like, hey, he only played 12 snaps. So maybe I want to reel that in a little bit. But like, so this is where you're going to get honest opinions, right? Where it's like we tasked ourselves with going out and saying, hey, where was I too low? Where was I too high? This is you're gonna get the real opinions here. And Derrick Henry is one. I was low on him too, and now I'm not. You can't possibly be now.
Yeah.
Nope.
So all right, Gary, is it me?
I'm gonna jump back in. I just did a last second pivot. I originally wanted to do Antonio Brown, but I realized I don't even know how much higher I am on. I think he is where we thought he was. So Brandon Cooks, man, like, what a revelation it's been for him this season. Like, he had Davis Mills last week, and he's still got 11 targets for 112 yards on 9 catches. Like, he only has 1 touchdown on the year, but he is 3rd in the league in total yards. I mean, he had 7, 14, and 11 targets. It doesn't matter who's throwing him the ball. I mean, we always expected this significant drop-off from Brandon Cooks because injuries, concussions, and because he went from playing with Breeze to Brady to Goff and then to Deshaun Watson. And we were like, well, there's no chance it's going to work out with whatever pond scum they have at quarterback for the Texans. but here it is. The dude is awesome. Like, you are so pumped if you got him in like the 11th or 12th round or 10th, whatever it was. I mean, in some leagues, he was just complete afterthought. Maybe in like some industry leagues, people will be like, oh no, he's the one or something. Dude, he's so much more than just like the one. It's like a 1 and there's no 2 or 3. There's just like a 4th option and he's the first 3. I love it. I mean, I live in Texas, so I get to watch the Texans games pretty much every week, and they're worth watching solely just because of him, because he's that fun to watch.
Yeah, like he's kind of pulling a lot of the Tyreek Hill moves out there, where it's just like he gets out there and just says, put it up there and I'll go get it. And he's been going to get it in contested catches. He's been winning with route running. He's been killing screens. Like, he's kind of doing the whole package. And the thing is, you look at Brandon Cooks. I tweeted this out the other day that he just turned 28. I'm talking 4 days ago, maybe 4 days ago, he turned 28. If you look at wide receivers, 27 or under, he's set in terms of yards at age 27 or under, 7th on the list. The only guys ahead of him are legit, like it's like Randy Moss. It's like Randy Moss, Larry Fitzgerald, Mike Evans, like Calvin.
There was no one on there was a scrub. I remember seeing it, just being like, "Holy shit!"
The list is crazy. Julio Jones is 6. He's 7. Antonio Brown is 8. Like, that's the kind of list we're talking about. And then 9 is like Isaac Bruce or Torrey Holt or something. Like, it's ridiculous the list he's on, and we don't think of him that way because maybe he hasn't been like a super red zone threat. But I mean, the dude gets open, he catches the ball. What more do you want?
Yeah, that's he's basically been almost a mercenary for hire, going to all these teams, but he literally has a monopoly on every single stat, every single metric, everything you can think of. He is the alpha and the omega for the Houston Texans. He's got he's almost got a 40% target share. That's like Devontae Adams type stuff. That's Cooper Kupp type stuff. Like, he's right up there with the top guys there. And I mean, who else are you going to throw the ball to? Like Chris Conley, Anthony Miller? Like, I guess you did.
Jordan
Thursday,
Akins. Please, Jordan Akins. Please.
Like, they need somebody, but right now, Brandon Cooks is doing it for him. I mean, he's a top 6 wide receiver in PPR right now. I mean, he's got just a 44% 3rd and 4th down targets, 56% of the air yards, a 14 ADOT. I mean, he's getting targeted short, medium, deep. He is literally everything for the Texans right now. And it just shows you, we all thought he was kind of left for dead when, we kept getting those concussions with the Rams, and we're seeing the beginning of the end of Brandon Cooks. But I mean, you can't argue with this after what Gary said, pond scum, which is a perfect descriptor for that quarterback room right now. I mean, he's making Davis Mills look moderately competent. That tells you everything you need to know right there.
The Texans were on pace before Tyrod went out. They looked like they were going to beat the Browns. They were going punch for punch for the Browns. I really thought they were going to win, and then he got injured, and it all went to hell. But oh man, like if they had, I mean, it would have been all on him. And what's crazy is in that game, his average depth of target was less than 6 yards. Like you said, he's just they're putting him wherever they need to be their weapon. So it's utility, like Swiss Army knife, whatever. It's awesome.
I hate to say it, but I mean, I guess why not? Like the Texans and the Lions, if you're a Texans or Lions fan, you're kind of getting the best of both worlds right now. Like the team is doing exciting things, and it's like the Lions, for instance, you can get excited about Hawkinson, you can get excited about Swift. They're under contract long term. The coach seems to be getting people fired up, yet you're still losing like you were supposed to. And you know what I mean? Like the team is set up to lose, roll money to the future. You traded the QB for picks. You got all these comp picks coming in. Like if you could, show that you're a competent program that wants to win and also lose and get the, all that comes with that. I mean, what more do you want? Same with the Texans, like fun games and the outcome at the end of the season you want, that'd be great.
Yep. If you would ask me what team would look the worst after 3 weeks, just and any performance, Texans Lions would probably be the top two, I think, and then the rest. I mean, I would say the Chicago Bears, in week 3, that was just when we'll talk about that. But yeah, the Lions and Texans have been surprisingly competitive, and then you keep going back to this. They're professional football teams. So, I mean,
that's right.
They're not rolling over middle schools here.
Yeah. Did you guys just see? You just happened to reference the draft that currently the Eagles have 3 top 10 draft picks for this year because they have Indy's, Miami's, and their own. Wow, so crazy.
That is wild. That's what Miami kind of did with the Texans.
Yeah,
before
trade him to the Texans for Deshaun Watson.
Good God.
Oh man. All right. Coop.
Yeah, so this one, it's funny because this is a guy close to near and dear to my heart, right? Rob Gronkowski is my guy here that I was not as high on as many people. I had him as a guy that you kind of throw in a best ball play, really, is what I had him as a guy that, might score a touchdown every once in a while. And the thing is, Gronk has always been a unicorn in terms of what we look for in terms of stats, right? So, you can't block on more than 15% of your snaps, right? Going back the last 7 years, only Kittle has been a top 5 guy blocking on over 15%. Gronk, he did it in 2012, and he's doing it right now. So he's out on that stat, right? Most guys are top 2 targets on their team, right? Pretty much everybody except Robert Tonyan last year with his 11 touchdowns and Martellus Bennett 2014. Gronk, not a top 2 target on the team. Doesn't matter, right? And they, it's like you don't want to chase touchdown dependent guys, but he's scoring 2 a week. You know what I mean? It's like, what do you do with this guy? I mean, just listen to these snaps, these stats last week, right? He only played 60% of the snaps. He blocked on 20% of his pass plays, at 1 of every 5. So he was only out there for 30 something. He blocked on 7 of them. He only participated in 45% of the routes. They ran for all the pass plays they ran. He didn't even play half of them, and he still put together a competent week. 5 catches, 50 yards. I mean, that's all we're asking for, right? And this isn't a game that was they didn't need him to play. It's like Gronk. He's a unicorn. He's outside the mold. The closest George Kittle is the closest thing we have to Gronk, but he's just he can do whatever. He'll block every play, and the one play he runs a route, he'll score a touchdown. So you just got to throw all that stuff out the window when it comes to this player, right? So I moved him up. He has to be up. He has to be a guy that you start where you have him, because he's just that good. He's all a famer.
And the NFL is just a better sport when Gronk is playing well and just doing Gronk things because he just makes everybody happy. I've never met somebody that's just fuck Gronk. No, man. Right. You could hate the Patriots and the Bucks for whatever reasons, but Rob Gronkowski is still I mean, he really is like the kid, like he's just the predecessor that like led to Kittle. I mean, I feel like Kittle probably was watching this guy just like, I know what I want to be when I grow up.
That's how you win their hearts and minds. You know, you just a big lovable oaf, right?
Yeah, true story. I did a shot with him at in Syracuse. He was at a Syracuse Duke basketball game. Got 35,000 in the Carrier Dome when he went to Fagan's downtown. Dude was just passing out shots and typical Gronk fashion, like legit, like like people like Michael Jordan and like the who's who of like college basketball. Gronk's just chilling there, you know, just handing out shots in like test tubes. Like it's like a freaking
Amazing.
Friday night.
I love it.
It's great.
Wouldn't expect any less.
Yeah, that's
Right.
like a typical. That's a Tuesday for Gronk. But yeah, the only thing that concerns me, and yeah, he's a unicorn, and he's kind of turned back the clock as far as his career here, but. I'm a little worried about the snap share. He's gone down from 74% down to 60%, down to 45%. But when he is in there, he produces. He is a unicorn. That's just the one kind of issue that I have with Gronk. But other than that, in a gross tight end position, you've pretty much got to start him as a tight end one, as a top 12 option. Because who else are you going to throw out there? Dawson Knox.
Right. That's my concern too. All those things are concerning for me. They're all red flags, and it doesn't really matter for this guy. I do think in games where they're winning handedly, they will do because like look at George Kittle week 1 with the Lions. Like they didn't need to force it to him. It's like he's had injury issues in the past. Why force the issue? So I do think in blowout games, they're not going to force the issue to Gronk. There's no reason to. He's a guy you just want him to be healthy. So, but this week going into New England, I think they want nothing more than for Gronk to do that ridiculous spike in the end zone and kind of stick it to the old lads. So it will be interesting to see. The Patriots are really good at stopping the tight end, so it's kind of that'll be interesting to see what happens there. But I wouldn't be surprised, for the Buccaneers to steamroll and for Tom to just say, let's just if it's first and goal with the 5, you got to think that Gronk's going to get a chance.
Yeah.
Yep. For sure. So my guy, I was high on him coming into the season, but I'm even more higher on him now because of the offensive environment and because they've had some issues. But with DeAndre Hopkins rib injury, and then you got Rondale Moore in and out of the lineup. You can't really pin down a consistency from him. But the one thing that's been a constant in the Arizona Cardinals has been Christian Kirk coming out of the slot. We talked about it. Coops talked about it. How Cliff Kingsbury, that video of him talking about how we're going to throw you in the slot just like he was at Texas A&M. But he had a top 10 finish, but. You know what? Christian Kirk has, I believe, and I'm going to go through it right now. He has the highest catch rate of any wide receiver with at least 15 targets, 88.2%. But he's done that with a 16 ADOT, which is absolutely impressive. He had to shoulder the load with, I will say, formerly dusty AJ Green, combining for about 80% of the air yard share between the two of them. But Kirk, if DeAndre Hopkins is going to be out, I have no problem putting Christian Kirk in my lineup, and that's not something we've said very often in the last couple of years, where Christian Kirk has been kind of wishy-washy, and we were kind of worried about how he was going to be used and if he was just kind of going to fade away in that offense. We know there were other pieces brought in to kind of shoulder that passing game load, but Kyler Murray with the 4 wide receiver sets, he's going to him early and often and deep. So I have no issue with Christian Kirk now, to where maybe this time last year we were kind of hoping that maybe Christian Kirk would get another start on a new team. I think Kirk is firmly entrenched with Arizona now, and I am supremely confident in him going forward, at least being a top 24 option going forward.
Top 24 feels right. And it was like, man, that feels kind of high, but like, the targets that he's getting, just the offense is clicking. It's like it's everything that we kind of hoped it would be. And crazy enough, it's like Rondale finally like woke Cliff out of his slumber and was like, "Hey, do something." And they're spreading the ball around, and they're I don't know. Maybe it's just Kyler is just covering any of Cliff's inefficiencies, but they're just playing lights out. So I love this. I think Christian Kirk should pretty much be owned in most leagues. Started in all sorts of weeks. I mean, anytime that you have a question mark, and if it's Kirk versus someone else, you have a high floor with Christian Kirk, and you have a fantastic ceiling. So.
Yeah, and I think people want to talk about like take AJ Green out and put Christian Kirk in. Take AJ Green out and put Rondale Moore in, or like, Christian Kirk needs to play less for Rondale Moore to play more. But if you really look at what's going on, Rondale Moore is just not a good blocker. Like, he has only had 17 blocking snaps. In the first game, he had a golden opportunity to lay a block for Kyler Murray, and he actually got a penalty, 10-yard holding penalty, brought the team back. And if you go and actually look at Rondale Moore's two biggest plays, the big broken play in the second week and the big screen in the first week, Christian Kirk was out in front blocking for him. You know what I mean? It's more like they have the 3 wide receivers, and then Moore comes on as the 4th wide receiver. And if they need to run, then Max Williams is out there, as the tight end, and Moore is out of the game. So for me, I don't even think it's a matter of Christian Kirk versus Rondale Moore. They're not doing the same things. Kirk is running high A-dot routes, getting downfield. Rondale Moore is more kind of running screens and stuff. Like, it doesn't really need to be a him versus this guy versus that guy battle anymore. Like, Christian Kirk is part of the offense. He has his role now. He's the slot guy. So and when they go 4 wide, Rondale Moore is the other slot guy. So I think it's pretty set in stone, and we can kind of stop having that debate and start asking the question of, are they really going to go full air raid where you can start both guys or not?
Yeah, and it was, pretty impressive to see. That's the thing about what Kirk versus Moore. Moore, you have to scheme for him to get those touches. Kirk, you don't have to. He can make plays on his own. So that's my tiebreaker right there. I mean, Rondale Moore, we were kind of hoping that maybe he would get a few more of those touches, scheme touches, but he kind of dropped back into, I believe it was like 50% of routes, to where, he's just a bench stash right now. But Kirk, fire him up. He's a star, every week starter now.
Yep, for sure.
All right, so we got through the positivity here. Now we're gonna go players that we have an affinity for, but now after 3 weeks we're lower on them than we were. So who wants to go first with that?
If Coop wants to go, or Kevin, you're welcome to. I lost my page.
I'll go first
now
on this one.
Where we're at.
Yeah, so I mean, here's a guy that I was kind of taking a lot of best balls, especially or in leagues where I like to take running backs early. So I would take 2 running backs, and I'd be like, okay, I got to get my 3rd guy. I was looking at this guy, Kenyon Drake, and I was saying, why is Kareem Hunt going so much higher? And also, why is Tony Pollard kind of going in a similar range, where I was like, they paid Kenyon Drake all this money. Why wouldn't he be the Kareem Hunt, right? With my thought process being, I'll take Kenyon Drake, and if Josh Jacobs gets hurt, now I've kind of landed myself a guy who can be a full-on bell cow, like RB1. You would think it kind of work both ways, right? Like that's kind of what the Browns have this set up as. If one guy goes down, the other guy does everything, and vice versa, right? With the Raiders, the big disappointment, I mean, we just saw it. Like, as a Kenyon Drake owner, I was like, oh, Josh Jacobs is hurt. Now it's Drake time. Well, I guess it's not Drake time. I guess they want to do the we like to say I call it the Erhardt-Perkins system, which it is called, which the Patriots do. But what is it, Kev? The Hufflepuff system?
The Hufflepuff Slytherin system.
But I guess he wants them to be 2 separate positions, the passing down back and the running down back. Peyton Barber is the running down back for all intents and purposes until Josh Jacobs gets back. So, I mean, 3 carries or whatever for Drake and $1 million for Peyton Barber, that whole thing goes out the window. So I can't help but be lower on Kenyon Drake than I was before. And I was a guy that was basically saying, hey, you know what? He's going to catch all the balls, and he could be a RB1. Now he's going to catch the balls, and he can't be an RB1, which kind of sucks, but that it is what it is. And after 3 weeks, there's no denying it, right? I mean, there's no justifying it right at this point.
Yeah, I've got him in a lot of spots as a zero RB guy. That was just totally happy to take as my RB1, in the 9th round, and hoping, because Josh Jacobs was probably somebody I believe I had one share of on over 100 teams, and I was going to be able to bask in those fruits of Kenyon Drake, but it's not meant to be. If you want to throw Dusty Baton Barber out there and let him run for the second most carries in the last 2 weeks, I mean, knock yourself out. But it was not meant to be with Kenny Drake, and that's a big blow to a lot of my zero RB teams where I do have him as either my RB1 or RB2, expecting him to not only have just that passing down work, because he's had 10, I believe he's averaged at least 10 PPR points each of the in these 3 weeks, but that's pretty much his ceiling at this point, because he's not going to get any more of that work. He's going to be that strict passing back, and right now he's basically Kenny Gainwell like plus. That's pretty much what he is right now.
Yeah. Hey, real quick, I got a message here from somebody who says, watching the stream, would you guys start Kirk over Manny, assuming Manny Sanders, and or Antonio Brown? Got to start 2 of those 3 in one of my leagues. So would you guys start Kirk? Start 2 out of 3: Kirk, Emmanuel Sanders, Antonio Brown.
Probably start Kirk, and I'd probably start Brown.
Yeah, I don't think that you can bench Brown. I think it's pretty hard too. Like, you don't know that it's going to be him, but
he's not playing a full snap share. Antonio Brown.
No, they've passed the ball 75% so far, so it's not like they're all going to get a chance to eat in that offense. That's, yeah. I think they're by far the highest passing offense as far as volume.
I don't know if you can bench Emmanuel Sanders right now, though. Playing half PPR, he just specified. So I think if it's half PPR, I think I'm comfortable going Emmanuel Sanders and Antonio Brown.
Yeah, it's tough because it's like, man, they're playing the Texans. Like,
there's almost not a bad choice here. It sucks that you have to leave one of those guys out.
I just think with Kirk, it's like there is kind of AJ Green got a good chunk of targets. DeAndre Hopkins could be healthier this week and get his normal target share. So I think Emmanuel Sanders is more of the the guy that
he's the number 2
likely to score. Yeah, he's like more likely to score a touchdown. Yeah. Same with AB. So
that's such a difficult statement to make when he hasn't had a touchdown until this week. And then he had 2. But I get it. I don't know. Like, I think that all 3 are awesome. I think that Antonio Brown is the highest ceiling of them all. Antonio Brown has the only chance to be the number 1 wide receiver on that given week. AB was going to be the guy that I'm rising on, because I think that the optimism of what he could be in being Brady's just like number 1 guy, we don't have that third data point to confirm it, but I think that it's there.
Yeah, and the thing is, with Christian Kirk, he also scored both his touchdowns in one game. It was the first game. Yeah. And Emmanuel Sanders did have the foot injury, so I'm still pretty big on Emmanuel Sanders. And he also, same guy, snuck a real quick one: Manny Sanders or Cole Beasley in full PPR, which I think that one is a little more interesting.
Pretty sure that Cole Beasley was out, injured.
No, Beasley.
I'd still go with Sanders, I think, but it's close.
Beasley got peppered with targets last week.
He sat out of practice.
If he's banged up, then go Manny. Even such a Cole Beasley game to catch 11 passes, but still not get 100 yards. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like at this point, he is that guy.
That is Crowder-esque.
Yeah,
that's a Crowder-esque line right there.
Right. Jacoby Myers and Tyler Boyd, like, these guys are just not fast. They're just running slants and they're not going anywhere with them. So I would go with the upside with Manny Sanders.
Yep. As far as a player that I am down on after 3 weeks, this is just a blow directly straight through my heart. Cincinnati Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow. I don't think a lot of people saw this kind of utilization coming from the Cincinnati Bengals, where right now they are a running team. They are, and I'll pull it up right now. They rank dead last in pass rate over expectation at minus 10%. Right now, they are running Joe Mixon into the ground right now. Jamar Chase looks great with his 4 touchdowns, but right now, I mean, the Bengals passing game ranking 30th in plays per minute. Every situation where they're trailing, they're still dead. They're bottom quarter in passing. Joe Burrow just does not have the volume to be able to make these guys. And they didn't have Higgins last week. They had Boyd and Chase, but it's pretty much those two. They're not even getting Joe Mixon involved in the passing game that much either. But without volume, they're not going to be able to make these guys, into studs. You might get, some usage out of Jamar Chase, but I'm worried about T. Higgins and Boyd too. The Bengals passed the 4th lowest rate so far in 2021 after passing for the 13th highest rate in 2020, which was pretty much out of necessity because they were, in a lot of negative game scripts. But they're 2-1 right now. If Zach Taylor wants Joe Mixon running the ball and being able to kind of manage Joe Burrow, why change that when they're winning games? So I don't know if this is going to be a drastic change, throughout the entire season. But right now I have a lot of Bengals players, not just Joe Burrow, but I have a lot of Boyd. I have a lot of Chase. I have the second most exposure to T. Higgins, and that just absolutely worries me. The Bengals are a running team. It's just like we all predicted.
I personally think that of all the guys that we're going to list here, of the people we're down on, I think Joe Burrow is the closest to a buy. Like, no, I don't think anybody's trying to buy him. I don't think anybody's thinking they can sell him. I think that this philosophy will. You have a quarterback that's coming off his ACL in his second year. Things were starting. I mean, they're putting stuff together. That offense looks better than it did last year. I get that that's because he's mixing some more, but just those wide receivers. I mean, last week he still threw 3 touchdowns, even if he didn't have a ton of yardage, and he only threw 18 attempts. Like, that's crazy that he still had 3 touchdowns. But I don't even know if buy is the right word, but it's somebody that I do think as the season progresses will get better, especially once Higgins gets better. Because when those 3 guys are going, I mean, that offense is it's awesome. Like, so I do see it. Like, it's definitely somebody I think that we're all trending in the wrong direction. But of the guys that I could see right the ship, I think he is the one that I think could right it and make us be like, all right, that was just a first quarter of the season blip or something.
Yeah, I mean, they just need better matchups. They need better situations. I mean, you throw 75 times in 3 games when you're winning because it's working. It's like, even as a Joe Mixon owner where I have Joe Mixon everywhere, I want them to throw more. I mean, like a bunch of rushing attempts where you're winning and the defense knows that you're going to run the ball and you're just running the clock out. Like that doesn't move the needle the way a high scoring game where you're dumping it down to the running back like 7-8 times, and like he's getting their carries and he's getting the catches. Like, we need those catches. Like, Joe Mixon's not catching the ball because they're not throwing it to anybody really. It's just so hopefully I mean, probably not this week with this Thursday night cat battle with the Jaguars. Like, this is going to be another boring week probably, but they'll probably have better games down the stretch. They play the Ravens twice. They play the Browns, so they'll probably have tougher matchups. We'll see. But hopefully they'll get to slinging a little bit because we've seen them do it, and they clearly have the weapons to do it. So, it could just be matchups,
Yep. And go ahead.
I was going to say, we always forget about defenses because I hate defense in fantasy. Like, I don't like having them. But I feel like sometimes we forget that, like, when your defense level up is probably a generous term for the Bengals, but when the defense starts to play better, your entire offensive philosophy can shift because you're not so terrified of like what your defense is going to give up. Instead, you're like, no, our defense is can hold, and so we can run the ball more. So, I mean, and their defense has been good.
Yeah, they were my favorite play last week as far as a cheap DFS defense was the Bengals. Another thing that's probably in Burrow's feather in his cap. They designed a lot more rushing opportunities for Burrow, way more than the first 2 weeks. So that could be something of his comfortability with his ACL.
Yeah.
And his ADOT improved by a couple yards, but he's still, it's just a little bit worrisome. But hopefully, this is just based on who they played so far. And yeah, the way I could see this game shaping up on Thursday is the Bengals getting up and then just mixing up the middle for 3 yards, mixing up the middle for 4 yards, Burrow past to Boyd short right for 5 yards for his down.
Well,
lather, rinse, repeat.
To Gary's point, at least this week, I think Chidobe, Awuzie, and Jesse Bates are both out. Safety,
yeah.
So maybe a little more passing there. But all right, Gary, who do you got? Who do you got as a guy that you were higher on and now are a bit lower on after 3 weeks?
So in draft season, we all were positive that Zach Ertz was going to get traded, and that meant that Dallas Goddard was going to ascend to the heavens and be. At the time, I think it was like, for me, it was you had the big five, and then you had Pitts, and then it was like Goddard, and then there was the rest. And Goddard just seemed like such a safe bet to take during your drafts because this offense was playing well. We saw him come on strong towards the end of last season. Like, he's always been a good tight end. Like, he's good pass blocking, but he gets snaps. Like, he was a second-round pick. Just everything about it just seemed to make sense. And then Zach Ertz didn't get traded. And then this offense has been weird. Like, the passing game is scattered all over. You now have a pass catching back who's also in there. And Dallas Goddard has 11 targets in 3 games. And even last week, Ertz didn't play, if I remember correctly. Maybe that was the week before that Ertz didn't play, whatever. Like, it's just, what's the ceiling on this guy? He is just now a tight end that's just in the middle of all these other tight ends. That is, for me, it's a big 7, and that includes the big 5 and then Pitts and then Logan Thomas. And then after that, I don't really know, like, any other tight end is just, you're kind of playing him here and there. And I'm sure we could talk the merits of who maybe warrants being there or doesn't in that higher level group. But Dallas Goddard is just a guy. Like, even if Zach Ertz gets injured, I still don't know if he is all of a sudden a locked and loaded tight end 1, because you have Devonta Smith and you have Jalen Reagor coming on. I mean, he's not getting a lot of targets, but like Quez Watkins is like getting deep balls. Like, you kind of, a lot of the targets that we maybe hoped would somehow get to Dallas Goddard, he's just not there, and he's not a safety blanket. And for me, when I think about tight ends, I want a red zone presence and I want a safety blanket. That even if they're getting dump offs, just because it's tight ends, I think we talked about this last week, getting 4 catches, sure, like, that's not great, but like, that is solid for a tight end, and he's not even getting that. So he's just, I don't know if I could trust him anywhere. That whole passing offense outside of Devonta Smith, I'm just not going to be touching.
Yeah, I mean, Dallas Goddard, he's basically a jag right now. He's just a guy, and I don't have a lot of him because I didn't like his price tag anyway, because I would rather have even guys that we did have questions on. We had questions about Logan Thomas. I don't think anybody has those now, with just the fact that he is running like every route and almost playing every single snap right now. I think he is clearly the next guy after that elite tier. You can throw Fant in there too, but Dallas Goddard, that was the whole crux of drafting him. Oh, well, they're probably going to be drafting or trading Ertz, and then they never did. So Goddard just kind of sank like a stone in the ocean, and nobody really wanted to touch him. And then he hasn't really helped himself with, he has 8 receptions on the year on 11 targets. So, with Devonta Smith, with Jalen Reagor, even, certainly showing up and producing, Quez Watkins, we've seen too. I just don't know if there's a big place for the tight end. I mean, Zach Ertz is outplaying him too. The tight end, Larry Fitzgerald, as I like to call him, where you catch it and fall down. That's pretty much what he is right now. But, I'm not really in on Goddard, not really making any kind of play for Goddard. I don't know if this is going to be, a a sign of things to come or if he can come out of it, but I don't really want to pay anything to find out.
Yeah, I mean, I've been warning people about Ertz's presence, and people were saying, "Oh, well, Dallas Goedert's a better pass catcher than Ertz at this point," and that may be true. But Dallas Goedert is one of the best blocking tight ends in the league, graded out as the number 2 run blocking tight end, I think, a year ago. And here's the situation. I got some numbers from last year where Ertz was out, and we saw what Goddard looked like, and he looked great. Week 2, with no Ertz, Goddard ran 55 of 58 routes in the game, played 33 slot snaps, right? 2 weeks later, just 2 weeks later, with Ertz back, Goddard only ran 24 of 36 routes. So the game before, 95% route participation. In the game with Ertz back, only a 66 route participation. He went from 33 slot snaps down to 9. And that's what happens is that when you look at that tight end room and you say, okay, who's going to block? Who's going to run the routes? You would never look at Ertz and say, Ertz, you stay in line so Goddard can play the slot. So when the two of them are there, Ertz is going to be the slot guy. It kills Goddard. If one of them was gone, like I think people think, oh, if Goddard was gone, then Ertz would be better. But it's actually the other way around, really, where if Ertz was gone, Goddard is the better pass catcher. And now he becomes the best pass catcher in the room, and they can just take anybody and stick them in line, Richard Rodgers or whoever they have at this point. I don't really care who the blocking tight ends are. You just stick them in that spot, and then you throw it at Goddard, and then it's better for fantasy football. Not for the team as a whole, probably, but better for me personally as a person. And I don't even own Goddard. I just want more high-end tight ends. It just makes the rest of our lives easier. It's not if there were 12 high-end tight ends, it would be easy to be a fantasy analyst. But there's 7, like Gary said, which makes my job impossible because everybody in the world is like, "Who do I start at tight end?" And I'm like, I don't know. But we're gonna work on it. We're gonna look at the numbers, and I'm gonna do my best to keep trying to help people out. But it's a tough situation. So
who do I start at tight end? I don't know, but grab a cup of coffee because we're about to talk for 3 hours.
Lightning round. Wow.
The opposite of lightning round.
Yeah, we do got to get this over. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll throw this up here. Start Godwin or CD. You got to start CD Lamb. I mean, just based on his. I mean, there's no bad start there. I mean, how do you not start both? Honestly, but
what's your lineup? Who else is in your lineup? Where you?
I mean. Are you starting Devontae Adams, CD, Cooper Kupp, and Brandon Cooks? And
I think the answer to that question is trade someone.
No, Godwin was going as a 5th-round pick, so you could have easily gotten, and especially depending on when you got CD, you could have 2 top. You could have like a running back and then wide receiver, running back, wide receiver,
and you only start 2.
Like you're set.
Yeah, I mean, Godwin's been playing 98, so 100%, 98% of the snaps. He is the top pass catcher for that team.
I have this like blank spot in my mind. Who did the Cowboys play? I haven't been able to remember.
Carolina.
Okay. I mean, I'm probably going to go with CD. I mean, just like his yardage has just been awesome. I just love Chris. You can't go wrong. Honestly, with players like this, I tend to just default to I trust Brady more than Dak, even if it's New England.
Yeah, I mean, Godwin's been better than CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah, he has.
Yeah.
All
right. Who's next here?
It's Kevin.
Is it me?
Yeah.
All right. Well, he might be one of the next contestants here on the all exercise team as it stands right now, just because he is completely overshadowed by his own teammate and his own quarterback. It's Robbie Anderson, who every time I look at his player picture, it makes me laugh because he looks like Coolio, from Gangster's Paradise, with whatever haircut or whatever thing that is. But the fact is, Robbie Anderson might as well be on a milk carton. He's not on a football team right now. I mean, he has pretty much disappeared, and it's not his own fault. It's just because DJ Moore has pretty much taken his role from last season. And is doing a lot more with it than Robbie Anderson has. Robbie Anderson has reverted back to being the 2019 deep threat that he was in New York with Sam Darnold. He has 5 catches in 3 games. He has 11 targets in 3 games. He doesn't even have, he has 103 yards, 1 touchdown.
52 yards on 1 touchdown.
His best finish in PPR is wide receiver 43. And that was in week 1. So right now he is on the borderline of just outright getting dropped at this point. And it stinks because you probably drafted him in the 6th or 7th round, but he's just not. I mean, things could happen right now with Christian McCaffrey on the shelf for a couple weeks where maybe some of those targets get funneled, out to DJ Moore, out to Robbie Anderson, out to Terrace Marshall. It is what it is. But right now, you can't start Robbie Anderson with any confidence right now. And that was why you drafted him, is because you had confidence that he could be maybe not so much the role that he had last year, but at least a safe option for Sam Darnold, who we had a previous rapport with, not just a complete, role reversal in this offense.
Yeah, that's the biggest shock, man, because he had the best role last year and he was feasting. And it's just crazy that they would switch it, but maybe they do just think, you know what, the quarterback's comfortable with him running this set of routes, and that's what it is. So, I mean, with Dan Arnold gone, I think they run more 3 wide receiver sets, but that might just help Terrace Marshall more than Robbie Anderson. But it'll be interesting to see. I feel like at a certain point, if the guy's producing nothing, you might have to try and switch back and say, okay, you know what? Let's see if we can get this guy going, and maybe DJ Moore can eat in the other role. But it's like you can't just let one guy do everything. I mean, I know they're winning now, but they've played some of the easiest teams, right? Like it hasn't been a good like a difficult schedule. So we'll see.
Don't drop Robbie, because I want to see what happens in these games coming up: Dallas, Philly, Minnesota. There should be some strong shootouts, possibly at least in 2 of the 3 of these. Christian McCaffrey is probably going to be out for at least 2, maybe even 3 of these games. Remember last year, even though Robbie was, I just felt like Robbie filled a void that McCaffrey left. And then McCaffrey came back. And I think that a lot of the concern in the offseason was that McCaffrey back means DJ Moore is going to lose some of his stuff. And it did not. Like DJ Moore, if anything, has increased. While at the same time, I think that's where Robbie Anderson, being the PPR guy, lost some of his. So don't drop him. See what happens in the next couple of weeks. I think if Robbie Anderson has a strong game in this week coming up in a shootout with Dallas, you might be able to trade him and just try and get something for him, because that McCaffrey is going to come back and he's going to start becoming another target hog. It's going to be DJ Moore and CMC. I mean, there's no Dan Arnold there to start taking away all those targets anymore.
Oh, so Tommy Tremble's not going to be a thing. He's been kind of a running joke.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, man. Definitely. I mean, he's blocked on 66% of his plays, and he's hardly even played. I mean, it's not, and he's got no path to being a top 2 target there. No Tommy Tremble for me. Thank you.
No.
All set.
Yeah, and the one thing, it is hard to justify having a guy that's got a 10% target share on your roster, like Robbie Anderson has. But I will say that could be a feather in his cap, that with a 18.4 ADOT so far, maybe he's been very far on the wrong side of variance with that. So that could work into his favor as regression comes back. But he, like I said before, you can't start him. You just have to hold him on your bench, and just, if he can right the ship, if he's not doing anything by like week 5, going into week 5, if his snap shares have been going down, his routes have been going down, trickling down little by little. So I mean, at this time, you don't want to be the guy that held onto a player for too long.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Before I get into my next one, real quick, guys, got another question. Hey, guys, from Michael Brantley, should I start CEH or James Robinson this week? I'm starting CEH. I mean, even when he fumbles and even when he does poorly in pass blocking, they continue to give him the reps. He had a good week. I mean, I think that it's just a better offense, the better team, and better matchup, honestly. So, I mean, what do you guys think? Are you good with James Robinson or?
He fumbled. They still gave him the ball, and I was everybody texting everyone and said, "Oh, this is about to be Darrell Williams' show when CH fumbled again."
Yeah,
it was nuts, and then they went back to him. So
Carlos Hyde played more than Darrell Williams did.
Yeah. Like right now, CH is just not getting any pass work. He's basically like a less volume Josh Jacobs right now. That's what CH is right now. If he's not going to get pass work, there goes pretty much all the upside that you were hoping for him drafting at the end of the second into the third. So I still like him, and I'm still a bit in on him because of that offense. You want everybody that is tied to that juggernaut Kansas City Chiefs offense. But at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, you have to look at the player, you have to look at the production and go, you just have to draw the line somewhere. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he's just not what we thought he was going to be.
ADP's out the window now, though, so it doesn't matter about that.
Yeah.
So do you start him or James Robinson?
I'd still start CH.
There you go. Yeah. I mean, I'm starting CH pretty much anywhere I have him because it's like there's just not enough good running backs. Like who can afford to bench? I mean, that's as a peach-colored sweatshirt wearing fella once told me, in this economy.
You're
gonna bench
in all climates and all economies.
You're gonna bench a starting running back on the Chiefs in this economy? Come on,
I know, right?
There's nobody else out there really. So, that's as close as it gets, I guess, with James Robinson. But that's where I go. What's okay?
Can I leapfrog you? I think that this conversation lends better for my particular player, and I want to spend some time on yours.
Get him.
So, Jonathan Taylor has been just a disappointment, but the problem is he wasn't a disappointment week one because he got this obscene target share and had, what was it, like 6-7 receptions. And then we thought, all right, this is the new normal, like, because Nyheim Hines, I think what was it, like a 48% target share for the running backs week one against the Seahawks. And it was like, what is going on? This is amazing. But then week two, it like came crashing back down. And then week three, same thing. And Jonathan Taylor, we know, is really good. The biggest concern that you had drafting Taylor was, will Marlon Mack, well, obviously he was out because of the Achilles, will Nyheim Hines eat into his work? Well, Nyheim Hines was right there with him week one, so it seemed like it's doable. Week two, again, they both came crashing back down to earth, but then last week, Nyheim Hines got 6 targets. Granted, they were getting their butts kicked for the most part by the Titans. But the biggest concern for me is you drafted Taylor because there is this epic, amazing offensive line. But that offensive line is like decimated right now. Their quarterback had 2 sprained ankles. I mean, I don't know what you do with Jonathan Taylor. And you don't sell him because there's no way to get the return on the investment because he will be good later in the year. But it's just right now they're down 3 offensive linemen. Eric Fisher, their left tackle, was coming off of what Achilles also, I believe, in the offseason. And then the same ankle or foot injury that happened to Wentz also happened to, oh my gosh, Quentin Nelson. And then they're missing another O-line. And so it's just like, what is the upside for playing him for the next few weeks? Now, in 3 weeks, they play Houston, and hopefully that's a get-right game and everything's, hunky-dory by them. But it's got to be terrifying right now because you can't sit Jonathan Taylor. You just have to put him in your lineup and hope he gets you 10 points. And even then, he has not gotten 10 points 2 of the 3 weeks. That's crazy. So it just sucks. I mean, he seemed to start falling a little bit towards the end of the year, but I know Kevin and I used to do these mock drafts with Murph from 5 Yard Rush and a bunch of other guys. We did them every year, every month. And I had JT, he was my RB5, and then he slowly started to fall. And then I think finally, the last drafts of the season, he was going at the 1-2 turn. Hey, that sounds about right considering we just talked about CEH and what his limited upside is. And yet he feels like he has more upside than Jonathan Taylor right now, which is crazy to say.
Going into it, I was tweeting about it. I said as many times as I could. Jonathan Taylor graded out as the 144th pass blocking back out of 154. That's atrocious. You have to be to get a grade that low. You have to be actively out there doing poorly because the grades are kind of accumulative. If you were just go out for 1 or 2 snaps and you kind of blow it, you'll end up in the middle of the pack. You have to actively be doing extra poorly. Dude, his pass blocking grade so far this year is worse than it was last year. Out of 100, it's a PFF at 0 to 100 scale. It is 11. It's an 11, dude. Like you could send one sheet of homework in on a paper airplane and get an 11 in a class. You know what I mean? Like that is bad. On 12 pass blocking snaps, he's let his guy straight up beat him to not just a pressure, but a hurry 4 times. So he can't do it. He clearly, I think at this point, it's a mental thing. Like if you look at a lot of these pass schemes, they're kind of complex. You got to count out the linemen. It's not always just whoever gets in. You sometimes have to have a guy assigned to you that you have to know who you're blocking. And if you can't figure that out pre-snap, you just can't do it. So, I mean, I'm concerned with there. But on the flip side, I feel the same way as I do with the last guy we talked about. If you drafted him and spent that draft capital, you don't have anyone else. You just have to start him because he could have big games. So, I mean, if I don't have him. I don't think I have him in any leagues, but I don't have him in any manager leagues because I was just drafting Joe Mixon there. So it was like you had to make a decision. You know, it's like you couldn't get both. So like that's just who I was taking. So I just didn't end up with him. But if I had him, if I was in the same spot with all my Joe Mixon guys and I had Jonathan Taylor there, I would just start Jonathan Taylor because I don't have anybody else. You know, I invested in a running back and I didn't take extra ones because I thought I had one. So I just doing it. You know.
Yeah, like last February, like before when drafts were just starting up, like he was going like 105, like 104, 105. And I thought he was mispriced. I thought that price was way too high, at least there. And, you know, once we started getting into like August and the end of August, I think that price is about right, or at least closer to being right. You know, I think it maybe could have gone up a little bit, maybe into like the 110, 111 range. But yeah, like in FFPC and stuff like that, I would see him routinely get into like deeper into the first quarter, into halfway through the second round, which to me was kind of wild. But I mean, right now he's running 60% of the rush attempts, but he has no path toward any of that receiving work. Yeah, that first he had 37% targets per route run in that first week, and then 7%. So I think that's pretty much gone out the window for Jonathan Taylor. And that was, you know, if you're looking for that, as Pat Kerrane would say, the legendary upside of these running backs, that was the main thing, is them riding him getting Nyheim at least part of that share of the passing down work, and, you know, parlaying that into a legendary season. It's just not in the cards for Taylor. But like Coop said, you pretty much got to start him. You know, right now he's a middle of the road RB2, but, you know, talent wise, he can, if the Colts can get right now, they're basically Wentz to Pittman, and then sometimes Pascal, and then dump off the Hines. That's pretty much what they are. And then just plunge Taylor up the middle in a depleted offensive line. That's pretty much where the Colts are right now.
Yep. All right. So I've gone way overboard on the timing here. So I got one left. It's mine, and I'm going to make it pretty quick for you. We thought Allen Robinson was quarterback proof. He might still be, but you can't be scheme proof. Like you can't just, when they only throw 20 times and the play calling is garbage, like you can't just somehow catch 10 passes when they're only throwing 20. You know what I mean? So he's got six catches the first week, made you hopeful for 35 yards, but he has 2 for 24, 2 for 27. Like there's no way. I was very high on him. There's no way anyone can still be as high as they were on him before, kind of no matter where you ranked him. You know, like this team needs to figure it out. So, you know, Allen Robinson, you got to move him down.
I wish they had a bye week. They just need to go on timeout.
Right.
I benched him. I think I'm benching him, and I don't know what to do because, like, I can't bench Jonathan Taylor, but I can bench Allen Robinson because there are other wide receivers. Right. But if he blows up and it's against, I think they're playing Detroit, it's just like
in my leagues where I have Cole Kmet, I look at Andy Dalton throwing 7 passes to Cole Kmet week 1, and I'm like, bring back Andy Dalton. Like, can't be worse than what we just saw. That was terrible. It's crazy that like I'm like pounding the table for Andy Dalton, but I kind of am.
I take Nick Foles. I mean, that's the sad thing. I mean,
Super Bowl champ.
Matt Nagy did Justin Fields no favors at all. Like that was doomed from the start.
Disaster. Maybe he's trying to sabotage Ryan Pace. Maybe he hates Ryan Pace secretly, and that's why Ryan Pace paid Jimmy Graham like $16 million guaranteed, and he benched Jimmy Graham, and he's not playing at all. And maybe he just wants to sabotage Justin Fields too.
We need to make Justin Fields look as bad, so my Andy Dalton, pick looks great, and we'll just ride him for the rest of the season.
Finger point, just a bunch of finger pointing, could be.
Yeah. Well, we'll see if Matt Nagy even makes it to like the bye week, because he might not. He might be the first one gone.
Coach of the year. Man,
I'm glad we had to cut it short on the Allen Robinson thing because like
I gotta go.
I'm just like angry in my soul right now. Like I could go. I could do an entire podcast right now just about how mad I am at Allen Robinson and Matt Nagy.
I had him everywhere.
It's bad.
So all right.
Yep. All right, we are out of here. We will see you for the Calm Before the Storm on Sunday mornings with myself, Gary, and Britt Flynn. Good luck in your week 4